The only kart racer I've ever seriously played in my gaming career is Mario Kart, and I've gotta say I'm extremely bummed that I've been missing out on the experience of Crash Team Racing all these years. Since the game's launch, I've played over 100 hours of Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled and have learned so much about it, and I'm excited to share what I've learned with others. This video will outline just about every last thing about how to play the game, and as it is for players of all skill levels, it has been divided into 3 sections: a novice section, an intermediate section, and an advanced section. If you're new to CTR, you would likely benefit from starting at the beginning, as the intermediate and advanced techniques require prior knowledge of some of the novice ones. If you're familiar with the game and have already spent some time with it, you can probably skip straight to the intermediate or advanced section. This video is obviously really long, so I've put timestamps in the description to give you an idea of the contents of the video and to help you navigate it easily. And with that, let's begin. The single most important and fundamental technique in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled is power sliding, also known as drifting, as it is the first step towards driving your kart at faster speeds. To perform a power slide, you need to first hop in the air, and you can do so by pressing L1 or R1, also known as the left and right bumpers, on your controller. Make sure to hold that bumper down as you tilt the analog stick left or right in the direction you want to turn. If you hold the analog stick in the direction you're turning, your drift and your turn will be tighter. If you hold it away from the center of your turn, your drift will be wider. As long as you hold the bumper down, you will continue to drift, but there are a couple different things that can happen if you hold a drift in one direction for too long. If you hold a tight turning drift for multiple seconds, your kart will start to wobble and will eventually spin out. If you hold a wide drift for multiple seconds, your kart will wobble, but you won't spin out and the drift will just abruptly end. You can actually drift forever by tilting the control stick in a different direction when your kart starts wobbling to stop the wobble, and then you can resume tilting in the direction you want to drift. This is kind of a useless fact, as you will not actually want to hold a single drift for very long when racing, but it's a thing. Now's where we gain some speed by adding in drift boosts, which the game refers to as turbo boosts. When your car touches the ground after a hop and you begin a drift, you will see the horizontal boost bar in the bottom right corner of your screen begin to fill up with a green color, which eventually turns to red. When the color turns red, if you press the bumper button on the opposite side from the one you're holding to continue drifting, you will perform a drift boost. You must continue to hold drift the entire time you're doing this. If you let go of drift before pressing the boost bumper, your car will hop instead of drift boosting. You can perform up to a maximum of 3 drift boosts one after the other in a single drift, with the third one giving you a larger boost than the first 2. You can drift boost the moment the green bar turns red, but if you wait until the red color almost completely fills the bar, your boost will be slightly more powerful than if you boost immediately after the color changes. The Nitro Fueled boost bar, which you can set to default in the options menu or by pressing the top circle button on your controller when in a race, is the easiest to see in my opinion, and it also gives you feedback on whether or not you are performing perfectly timed drift boosts or if you were a little too early. Be sure not to let the bar fill past the end line, as doing so will prevent you from getting any further boosts on that single drift. After you finish a triple drift boost, you should immediately stop your current drift and start another one in order to chain drift boosts together. When done on a straightaway, this technique is called snaking, wherein you alternate drift boosting left and right repeatedly instead of drifting only when making turns. To snake effectively, minimize the amount of turning your character does by keeping the analog stick neutral until the very end of your hop. When you tilt the stick left or right at the end of the hop and begin power sliding, immediately hold the control stick in the opposite direction of your drift for a wide angle. Using this method will allow you to perform multiple drift boosts in a single drift when snaking, maximizing your boost output, which is very important and will be explained more in depth in the intermediate section of this video. Speed and acceleration type characters, with their relatively poor turning stat, are naturally better at snaking, as they are able to maintain wider drifts than characters with good handling. Additionally, each time you drift boost, you briefly tighten your turn. This mechanic both prevents you from snaking too easily and gives you more control over the turning radius of your kart. Sometimes you may intentionally choose to perform all good drift boosts in order to tighten your turns and prevent you from falling off the track. While snaking doesn't allow you to drive in a straight line, it is an important technique to help you hold higher top speeds for longer periods of time, and that will be explained in more detail in the intermediate gameplay section. There are a couple visual cues other than the boost bar that will help you know the optimal time to turbo boost. While the boost bar is filling up, If you have Nitro wheels enabled in the options menu, you will see your wheels quickly turn bright orange. The moment you see any orange at all, you may press the Turbo Boost bumper to perform a good turbo boost. However, if you wait until your wheels are virtually fully orange, you will perform a perfect turbo boost. Finally, you can watch the color of your exhaust flames. During a power slide, the moment they turn a smoky black color, a turbo boost is available to be performed. From what I can tell, there is no visual difference between good and perfect turbo boosts in the exhaust, but with my experience, you likely won't need any of the visual indicators. At this point in my CTR career, I just instinctively know the right timing to perform perfect turbo boosts anytime I want. And I do them constantly. Repeated turbo boosts are essential to driving at faster speeds, so when playing CTR, always remember your ABDs. Always be drifting. When you drive off a platform or ramp, or even just a raised bump in the ground, you can perform a trick jump by pressing the hop button before leaving the ground. If you get enough hang time, your kart will get a boost upon landing, and the more hang time you get, the more potent that boost will be. You can increase your hang time by jumping right at the end of a ramp instead of before you reach the end, and some shortcuts necessitate trick jumping with good timing at the latest possible moment. While jumping at the very end of a ramp will award a higher altitude and more hang time and is often preferred, jumping before the end of the ramp allows you to stay lower to the ground and continue drifting and turbo boosting sooner, and may be optimal in various situations. When you perform a trick jump, the vertical bar next to your boost bar will start to fill based on the amount of time you spend in the air. You can see exactly how much of a boost you will get by the number of segments filled in the Nitro Fueled boost bar, or by the color of the meter in the other boost bar variations. Driving over a green and black arrowed boost pad on the ground will give you a short burst of speed. Some boost pads give you yellow exhaust flames when you go over them, and others give you blue exhaust flames, which make your kart drive even faster. The specifics of the different types of boost pads will be explained in the intermediate gameplay techniques section of the video. To get a boost at the starting line and gain an edge over your opponents, press and hold accelerate slightly before the light turns green to fill your boost bar. The more your boost bar is filled when the race begins, the stronger your boost will be. If you press accelerate too early, your boost bar will empty and you won't receive a boost. However, pressing accelerate only once before the light turns green will not fill up the boost bar all the way, even with perfect timing. If you rev your engine a couple times prior to your boost attempt, you will be able to fill it up completely. Each rev, up to 3 total, including your final boost attempt, will increase the amount of boost you can get when starting the race. The final kind of boost you can get comes after you've fallen off the track and are deposited back on it by the masked Aku Aku or one of his masked counterparts. You perform this boost identically to the way you perform a starting line boost, by revving your engine immediately before the mask releases you onto the track, and if your boost meter is full when you're dropped, you will land with a burst of speed. If you're fast, you can even rev your engine up to 3 times like with the starting line boost, and the fuller your boost bar, the stronger the boost. One seemingly insignificant technique that is almost never mentioned in tutorial videos is driving in reverse. All you need to do is hold down on the control stick and gently tilt it left or right in the direction you want the rear of your car to move. If you came here from a Mario Kart series, you do not have to hold brake in order to reverse. If you do that, you will still back up, but you will back up more slowly than if you had not pressed the brake button. You can also hold R2 to look behind your kart at any time. There are 4 different classes of characters in CTR, and each character class has a different stat spread than the others. All characters fall under one of these 4 categories, so when picking up the game for the first time, try all of them out and see which one clicks for you right away. As you begin to master the fundamentals, it will become much more easy to branch out to the other classes. Balanced characters such as Crash and Cortex have equally good top speed, acceleration, and handling, and while they are better than average in all 3 categories, they do not excel in any of them. Speed-type characters like Tiny Tiger and Dingodile have the highest top speed, but they have difficulty taking tight turns and do not accelerate as quickly as other characters. Acceleration-type characters like Coco and Engine reach their top speed from 0 extremely quickly, but their handling is only slightly better than that of the speed-type characters, and they have middling top speed. And finally, turning-type characters such as Polar and Pura can take just about any turn with ease, but they have only average acceleration, and their top speed is the lowest in the game. Of course, no party racing game would be complete without a small element of RNG, and that's where the power-ups come in. Driving through a question box will give you a random power-up, and the type of power-up you can obtain from a box differs based on your position amongst the other drivers, with more powerful ones being afforded to racers in the back. The power-ups possible to obtain in any position are bubble shields, explosive crates, beakers, turbo boosts, single and triple bowling bombs, and masks, which are somehow possible to get in first place but are still very rare compared to the others. Clocks that slow down all other racers, warp orbs that target the first place racer and all others in its way, and single and triple tracking missiles that home in on the racer in front of you are not available to first place racers and become more common as you drop in position. Unmarked boxes that you find on the track contain Wumpa Fruit. Each box may hold anywhere between what I'm pretty sure is 6 and 9 pieces, and some single pieces of Wumpa Fruit may be scattered on the ground of certain tracks. You can only hold 10 Wumpa Fruit at a time, but the more you have, the faster your cart drives, and if you manage to collect 10, your power-ups will become stronger, or juiced up, as the game calls it. For example, while normal TNT boxes are red and can be shaken off before exploding by jumping 5 times, juiced up TNT boxes will explode immediately on contact. Beakers will not only just spin you out, but will also provide a slowing and item scrambling effect when juiced up. Bombs have larger explosion radii, missiles travel faster, warp orbs target every racer on their way to first, bubble shields turn blue and last indefinitely instead of temporarily, and turbo boosts, masks, and clocks effects last longer. Additionally, juiced up turbo boosts will grant you Sacred Fire speed, which I'll talk about in depth later. It's important to prioritize Wumpa Fruit early on in the game, as a blue shield that lasts forever is way more impactful than a green one that lasts only temporarily, and the other item upgrades can help catch you up even faster or further impede racers behind you. Additionally, while the speed boost from holding Wumpa Fruit is helpful, it is also very minimal, and particularly when nearing the end of a race, it is not worth it to go out of your way to pick up a box of fruit when you could just take a tighter turn around one of the final corners instead. I'm not completely convinced that the speed enhancing effects are very noticeable though. In 2 time trials on Jungle Boogie, the shortest track in the game, I raced basically 2 identical races with the same character and the same racing lines and boosts, one while getting the second and third available Wumpa Fruit boxes in the first lap, and one without. My times were just over a half second apart, and both times clocked in between 1 minute and 18 seconds, and 1 minute and 19, with the race without Wumpa Fruit being the faster one. Jungle Boogie is the shortest racetrack, but 2 laps take approximately 52 seconds total for me, and I think that should be enough time to notice a difference. It's possible that the speed difference would be more noticeable in lap times on a longer track such as Electron Avenue, but the longer the track, the harder it is to be consistent over 3 different laps, and I honestly don't think I have the patience to fully test that out. The third and final kind of box on the track is the Exclamation Box. Driving through one will cause something to change on the track ahead of or behind you. On some tracks, it will open up new ramps to jump and boost off of. On others, it will open up hazards for you and your opponents. Not every track has one of these boxes, but take the time to learn what each one does, as hitting or avoiding them can mean the difference between first and second place. If you find that a turn is too tight to power slide around, try hopping a couple times in a row. This will tighten your turn radius slightly and allow you to make some of the tougher turns where you would otherwise bump into a wall and lose your speed in power slide. Hopping can also help you to quickly orient your car in the correct angle for a perfect power slide and triple turbo boost, so experiment with it when you can, but make sure that you are still turbo boosting as much as possible. I can't stress that enough. And that about does it for the beginner gameplay elements and techniques. If you're completely new to the game, I recommend that you take a little time in-game to become familiar with these before moving on in the video, as the intermediate and advanced techniques can be confusing without a good understanding of the basics. If you're an original CTR veteran, or you've already mastered these, then you're in the right place. We have reached the point in the video where we talk about reserves, something I'm sure that most of you watching this have heard about before. Reserves is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, boost power that is saved for a point later in the race. Once when I was watching a basic tutorial, a YouTuber whose name I can't remember and whose video I can no longer find for some reason, gave a perfect analogy of the reserve system that stuck with me. If you are that YouTuber or you know who he is, please let me know in the comments so that I can credit him in the description of the video. He said that stockpiling reserves is like pouring water into a barrel that has a hole in the bottom. The goal is to let your reserves continue to leak out without running out completely, And you do that by constantly refilling your reserves with all kinds of boosts. If you chain boosts together one after another, you can fill your reserves faster than they deplete, allowing you to amass an amount that will last a while. However, if you run out of reserves, you will have to start refilling them again from zero. As long as you have any amount of reserves stockpiled, they will be depleting, so you need to power slide efficiently in order to maintain them. I do not know if there is a cap to the amount of reserves you can amass. If someone knows a definitive answer to this, please let me know. With practice, you can keep your reserves up through an entire multi-lap race on every single track in the game, although some tracks are more difficult to do this on than others. Stockpiling reserves, also known as building reserves, happens by performing turbo boosts while power sliding, using a turbo item, driving over boost pads on the ground, and performing trick jumps. Trick jumps with longer hang time will build more reserves than those with less hang time, and perfect turbo boosts will yield more reserves than good ones, so make sure to hit perfect turbo boosts as often as you can. Just make sure to boost constantly, as neglecting to do so will cause you to run out of reserves. Turbo boosts from power slides are the most easily available kind of boost at any point in time, so don't forget your ABDs. Always be drifting. If you don't drift, you can't get turbo boosts. If you don't get turbo boosts, you can't build reserves. If you don't build reserves, you can't maintain high speeds. If you don't maintain high speeds, you can't win online races or defeat some of Nitrous Oxide's time trial ghosts, so get drifting. As an aside, I have heard a couple of people say that revving your engine as many times as you can before boosting at the starting line further builds your reserves each time you rev it. I don't know if that was true in the original CTR, but it is not true in Nitro Fueled. The amount of reserves you build from a starting line boost is only dependent on how fully charged you get your boost to be. A maximum starting line boost with only 3 revs of the engine is exactly the same as a maximum starting line boost with 8. While we don't have access to a meter that tells us exactly how much reserves we built up at any point, we can see the effects of reserves by paying attention to how long our engine boosts us without us continuing to boost. In the first of these 2 upcoming clips, I'll build reserves as much as possible for half a lap, and then let them deplete as soon as I cross the bridge in Crash Cove. In the second clip, however, I'll build reserves for a solid 2.5 laps. Watch them, and compare the amount of time my engine continues boosting me after I stop power sliding. That first boost continued for a small amount of time. Now check out how long it goes after 2 full laps of reserve building. I'd like to mention that the purpose of building reserves is not so they can be spent in this manner. There are a couple ways to increase your top speed, but those speed increases can only be maintained while you have reserves, so if you don't have any built yet when trying to initiate those higher speeds, you will struggle to maintain them more than if you had already been building them. There are a number of ways to lose your reserves other than just letting them run out without continuing to boost. If you get hit by an item, run into a wall, fall off the track, or press the brake button while your wheels are touching the ground, you will instantly lose all reserves you had built up to that point, and you will have to start again from scratch. Fortunately, all of these things are things you don't want to be doing anyway, so avoid them and you will continue driving at high speed. It's finally time to get into the most exciting part of the reserve system and the game as a whole: how to use your reserves to help you drive at faster speeds than normal. Remember when I talked about boost pads and mentioned that some of them give you large yellow exhaust flames and others give you large blue or white exhaust flames? Both of those kinds of flames give you a speed boost that is faster than your normal top speed, even when performing a triple turbo boost from a power slide. If you don't have any reserves built up while driving over them, their effect will wear off in a very short time. However, with a stockpile of reserves, you can continue to drive with these new flames coming out of your exhaust for long periods of time, giving you a higher top speed than what you would have without it. While you have it, you need to continue to chain boosts together, keeping your reserves up, because if you run out, the yellow or blue flames will die, and you will have to continue driving with a lower top speed, which means you are guaranteed to be passed by other racers who manage to maintain their reserves and keep their yellow or blue flames. The large yellow flame that comes out of your exhaust is called Sacred Fire. The majority of boost pads in the game give you Sacred Fire when you drive over them with reserves, and the difference in speed between that and your normal top speed is easily noticeable. The large blue or white flame that comes out of your exhaust, however, is called Ultra Sacred Fire, USF for short, or Blue Fire. USF can only be achieved by driving over unique boost pads that I conveniently call USF boost pads. They are only available on specific tracks, and some of those tracks only have one, while others may have many. The speed that USF gives you is extreme, and because it is, it can be difficult to maintain on some tracks, as going faster widens your turns and you may end up bumping into walls more often than normal. It is also the fastest speed achievable in the game. Or is it? It turns out that Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled has two different speeds of USF, but the only observable difference between them is the speed you drive at, as they both have identical blue-white flames coming out of the exhaust, and both completely max out your speedometer. While both are normally just called USF, I will be calling the faster version Super USF in order to distinguish between them in this video. To move at Super USF speeds, you need to go over special USF boost pads that give you Super USF instead of regular USF. Super USF is much harder to maintain than even regular USF, as the speed difference seems even more noticeable than the difference between regular USF and Sacred Fire. On the Grand Prix track Twilight Tour, you can achieve regular USF far before the single Super USF boost pad near the end of the track. Before I knew of the two different USF speeds, I used to cut one of the final corners in Twilight Tour as sharply as possible, because I thought there was no point in going wide to the jump and Super USF boost pad atop the wooden walkway when I could just take a tighter turn and continue drift boosting on the ground. Here are two clips of me driving through the same section of track, one with regular USF and one with Super USF. When I had regular USF, I was able to take the turn after the straightaway without issue. But with Super USF, I had to not only mini-turbo more quickly to turn tighter, but I also had to hop to avoid hitting the outer wall. Another easily noticeable example of this is on the track Deep Sea Driving. The first boost pad in the track is a Super USF boost pad, but if you get hit by the Kraken's tentacle or the mechanical propeller before hitting the boost pad right before the open cavern area, which is only a regular USF boost pad, you will be significantly slower during the following section on the raised platforms in the cavern. Now watch how fast you go if you manage to keep the Super USF that you get from that first boost pad. Once again, look at the sheer difference in speed between the two forms of USF. I was able to continue drifting through the underwater tunnel with regular USF, but with Super USF, my turn was so wide that I drifted right up the side of the wall. Remember, you can only maintain this awesome speed if you maintain your reserves, so despite the difficult to control speeds, you absolutely need to continue to boost constantly. There is one more concept I'd like to mention in the intermediate section, and while this won't change how you play the game, it is an interesting thing to know. If you cycle through your available boost bars at the bottom right of the screen by pressing the top circle button on your controller, triangle on PS4 and X on Nintendo Switch, one of the three options has a speedometer. This speedometer is functionally useless if you are familiar with the reserve system, Sacred Fire and USF, as it doesn't actually show you a numerical value of speed you're currently driving at, which is contrary to how the speedometer has worked in various Mario Kart games. In Crash Team Racing Nitro Kart, there are 6 different levels of top speed based on the things you've done so far in a race, and the speedometer instead only shows you which speed level you're currently at, as the needle's location when you're traveling at Sacred Fire speed with a high speed character like Tiny Tiger is exactly the same when playing as a low speed character such as Polar. The first and slowest speed level in the game is when you are just driving normally without using turbo boosts or driving over turbo pads. The speedometer maxes out in the middle of the 4th notch, and there are no flames coming out of your exhaust. Speed level 2 is achieved by continually only getting the first 2 turbo boosts in each drift and not the 3rd. The speedometer maxes out in the middle of the 5th notch, and there are small red flames coming out of your exhaust. You can get to speed level 3 by performing a triple turbo boost in a drift. The speedometer maxes out straight vertically on the line between the 5th and 6th notch, and there are orange flames coming out of your exhaust. To get to speed level 4, you must drive over a standard boost pad. This is the speed of Sacred Fire, and the speedometer maxes out in the middle of the 6th and final notch. Regular USF is the 5th speed level, and as said earlier, it is achieved by driving over a USF boost pad. The speedometer is already maxed out all the way during USF, and there are large blue-white flames coming out of your exhaust. The 6th and final speed level is Super USF, only attained by driving over special Super USF boost pads. The speedometer and flames look identical to those of regular USF. This information about the speedometer could be seen by some as relatively useless, but it is helpful to know that, from a complete stop, immediately performing a triple drift boost instead of multiple single or double boosts is the quickest way to achieve your highest available top speed if no boost pads are near. Additionally, since the speedometer doesn't actually give you any information other than what you already know based on how you're driving, you can feel free to choose another boost bar setting that doesn't clog up the lower right quadrant of your screen without sacrificing information. And that about does it for the intermediate techniques and concepts. Get ready for these advanced ones, because if you haven't yet heard about or seen them, they will greatly change the way you race on most tracks in the game. Of the 2 advanced techniques in this video, I learned how to air brake first and used it often, but once I learned the second technique, I used air braking much less. As the name implies, air braking can only be performed when your wheels aren't touching the ground, and it will help you reorient your car in the air so that you can land with a better angle than if you had just held left or right to turn. At its core, air braking makes your car move in a straight line and then instantly changes directions in midair. To air brake, go off a jump and let go of acceleration. While you are tilting the control stick left or right to turn, hold brake. Your car will continue flying in its original direction, but it will turn to face the direction you are tilting on the control stick. Once you are facing the direction you want to go, let go of brake and press acceleration again. Immediately, your car will lurch forward in that new direction, and you will not have moved in a curved line. Even if you have reserves built up, you can let off of acceleration and press brake without losing them as long as you are in the air. You can maintain Sacred Fire, USF, and Super USF in this way around turns where you would normally otherwise hit a wall or drive off the track. I found this technique to be particularly useful in areas such as the final jump shortcut on Papu's Pyramid, where I can cut a sharp angle instead of jumping in a curved line that takes even longer to drive in the direction I ultimately want to go, which is toward the finish line. The final technique we'll discuss is one that, when mastered, will instantly shave off several seconds of most of your time trial records. U-turning is far more useful than the air brake, as it turns even more sharply and will allow you to take turns both on the ground and in the air while maintaining even Super USF all the while. I've identified 3 different kinds of U-turns, which I call grounded, hopping, and aerial U-turns. Just take a look at what a few good U-turns can do for you at the S-curves of TurboTrack. When explaining U-turns, I think it's important to start with the why, as knowing what makes this possible will make it easier for you to control your cart when you implement it yourself. The essential mechanic to a U-turn is holding down on the analog stick or the D-pad at the same time you hold the brake button. The reason why this works is that holding down while you have boost messes with the slowing function of the brakes while keeping the sharper turning function intact. After I cross the bridge, I hold straight down on the control stick and then press the brake button at about half-second intervals. And you'll see that, while my reserves are being spent, nothing happens to my car. However, once they run out, you'll see my brakes work on and off as I press and release the button, even though I'm still holding down. As you can see in the clip, while boosting, I don't slow down at all, but when I'm not boosting, the brakes function normally. Note that this will not work if you do not also let go of acceleration. To perform a U-turn, you must tilt the control stick down and to the left or right at the same time that you shift your thumb from acceleration to brake. Keeping the analog stick at exactly a 45-degree angle will give you the best results, but if you use the D-pad, you don't have to worry about that, as you can't input a direction between vertical or horizontal other than 45 degrees on the D-pad. I personally prefer the analog stick of the Switch Pro controller, but you can find the one that works best for you. A very important thing to note about U-turning is that, if you're on the ground, you must be holding down before pressing brake, because pressing brake first will cost you all of your reserves and bring you straight down to the first speed level. If you skip straight to the advanced part of this video, the 6 different speed levels in CTR were described at the end of the intermediate section. Here's a clip of the grounded U-turn in action, but with reserves built up. Notice in this clip that, when I hold a U-turn in any one direction for any length of time, my speed gradually decreases, even though I continue boosting. I do not know exactly what interaction is happening here between the brakes and holding down, but if I slow down an amount and then stop turning and just hold straight down, the game seems to remember that my car should be moving quickly, because I'm boosting, and it instantly returns me to the top speed of my current speed level 4 in this example. You will not get the speed back until you return the control stick to the Y-axis for about a half second, even if you let off the brake and start pressing acceleration. If I don't continue turning in the same direction for more than a very small amount of time, I will not lose any speed. However, there is a way to perform a U-turn in one direction without losing any speed at all, and that is by hopping while also performing the other functions of a U-turn. When people talk about U-turning, they are typically always referring to the hopping method of U-turning instead of the fully grounded method. The hopping method is preferred because you do not suffer the speed loss of a U-turn while your wheels are off the ground. Holding the brake button prevents you from starting a drift, so you don't have to worry about perfectly timing your hops. Additionally, hopping U-turns on tracks with small rises and dips such as Hot Air Skyway will net you occasional extra boosts, helping you to maintain your reserves, which can be extremely important as you are unable to drift during U-turns. Being unable to drift means you're unable to boost, which means your reserves are draining, which means you're getting closer to losing speed. Thus, if you U-turn around every single corner, you will have a lot of difficulty holding Sacred Fire or USF. So try to U-turn only around corners where you would otherwise hit a wall or fall off the track, just as a general rule. U-turning can also be used on large jumps as well, on the last sharp turn before the finish line on Hot Air Skyway. While you can also do this with air brake, U-turning will allow you to efficiently hop the fence before the turn itself and land comfortably back on the track while maintaining USF the entire time. Here's a visual example of that happening. There are a few other locations, such as these 2 turns on Cortex Castle, where U-turning is helpful, so experiment with corners that give you trouble and see if U-turning can solve your problems. And that covers just about every gameplay technique and concept in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. No matter what skill level you're at, I hope you found something of value in this video, even if you only increased your understanding of something you already knew. Either way, thanks for watching, and if you know of anyone who could be helped by this video, please share it with them. If there's anything I missed or that you would like a different explanation on, please comment to let me know, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.